Welcome to the Builders Podcast, episode 147, The Art of Capturing. Client requests, teamwork, access, how-tos, and more. Before we jump into this episode, please subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're on YouTube, and after a listen, please give us a thumbs up, like, and share, if we've earned it. With your help, we can reach more people and deliver these valuable from the trenches lessons to those that need it. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another The Builders. Today, we are joined by Matt Levenhagen. Myself, and I are here again with a solo episode. Today, we're going to get into capturing things. That is, as an agency owner, running an agency with, a team of about 10 people and dozens of clients and partners and dozens of projects going all the time. It's a little mental. There's a lot to capture there. There's a lot to capture in terms of stuff we get from our clients. There is a lot to capture from my team and what they're doing, whether that's time tracking or whatever. There's a lot there to capture. Documentation is a huge part of that, documenting things on a micro level and a macro level. So basically how-tos, like how to do things, tasks and documentation and capturing time and access. Access is huge for us as a web design development agency because we get a lot of access to things. We have access to things that the clients, sometimes lose and don't have access to. So we have to have ways, like we have to be the responsible party in everything that we do. I actually go with the assumption that the client is probably not as worried about their tech and all their access as we are. So we have things, I'll talk about the tool we use and stuff to keep all that secure and stuff. So that's the conversation today. So one of the things that I'm just going to dive right in. So hope you don't mind. One of the things about our agency, it evolves, right? It's evolved over the last, we're just finishing our 5th year, going into our 6th. And in that 5 years, we have gone through a wide range of changes as we adapt to our growth and the size of the team and everything. When I first started out the first few years, as you know, if you're a regular listener of this podcast, I was pretty much solo those first few years. Yes, I would contract things out. I would get help, outsourcing to, in various ways, just developers I knew or the Upworks in the world or whatever to get help. So, but in terms of the agency at that time, it was mostly me doing a bulk of the work. And I was the only one that was going to see the documentation and all that stuff, or anything for that matter. So that's how it was in the beginning. And I don't know if I've ever said this or revealed this, but in the beginning, I used Notion. Today, a lot of people are still using Notion. I know it's out there. I see people talking about it a lot. And especially now that it's got AI integrated into it, like everything else. But in the beginning, I don't know when Notion was launched or whatever, but in the beginning of my agency, which was basically January of 2019, I think. Say 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah, that would make sense. So back then, in those beginning years, I used Notion. And I used it to track all the documentation and access and everything that I got. And as far as access, I mean like logins and things like that. I just put it all in Notion. And and I kind of have that as my last bullet, but yeah, access has been one of those things that's really evolved. For a while I was actually using Google Docs and doing it that way. and all the ways we did it were always better than what probably the clients were doing. Right? And even the sharing of stuff has changed. But we'll get to that. So I went from Notion, and then when I started building a team, I've also talked about this where I decided at one point we were going to be an Atlassian team, and Atlassian being a company that has various services. They include Bitbucket, which is kind of a dev thing for repos, to store code, track code, version control, all that good stuff. Git. And, so we were using that already. And then we started using Trello for project management. And then we were using, let's just be Atlassian. And we started using Confluence, which is their documentation solution. So I was using all of that. There's Jira too. There's other services. And that worked for a couple of years, up until actually the beginning of this year. So up until this past year. And then we had a crisis where we really just grew out of Trello. I actually have a couple episodes talking about that earlier this year in early in 2023. A couple episodes. Actually, they're some of my most popular episodes, which is wild and crazy, isn't it? That people are actually interested in in project management. Like I have a lot of guest episodes. Usually my guest episodes are probably more popular. But for whatever reason, my episodes on, let me look at my analytics here. I can look at my analytics. I think if I can, let's see, audience, episode ranking. Yeah, switching project management tools. That is switching project management tools is my number one ranked. Navigating the transition in your agency. What is let's see if I can find the episode number. Why am I not seeing the episode number? Anyway, you could find it. Just go to my website, thebuilders.fm, search for project management. You'll find it. That was actually April 17th, around that time of the year. Anyway, so we had a crisis. We had a crisis because Trello stopped working for us. As we scaled up, in the beginning, tools work, especially if things are simple, small team, handful of projects. But as time went on, and our client base increased, and our partnerships increased, and just all the stuff we were doing, the team grew. It was insane trying to keep track of all that. Trello is not built for the type of the way we do project management, and the way I needed things split out and be able to, the visualization of it and all the data was it was pretty hacky. And I was always looking for solutions like add-ons or whatever you call them over there to try to figure out how to solve that problem. And it took me for a year, I struggled on that, at least a half year to a year. Finally, I'm like, there's got to be another solution out there. And I made the switch to ClickUp. And that's what I use today. We've been using that since the beginning of the year, as I just mentioned. And it's been absolutely amazing. And let's give you a third update, because I had the first one, and then I had a follow-up. How's it going? A month or two later. But many months later, we're still there, and it's still amazing. I'm not going to get into all the reasons it's amazing. And there's other solutions like it. There's money.com. There's other solutions. But this is the one I went to, and it's just great. So, one of the things, though, what we're going to talk about today is the ability to capture things within ClickUp. And part of that is the documentation aspect. And that's really what I'm drilling into here initially. One of the things that is super important with, probably any business, especially agencies, and especially a web design development agency, that has those dozens and dozens of things, clients and partnerships and all that, is having good documentation, having good processes and SOPs, standard operating procedures, SOP docs, and just capturing all the how-tos out there and everything. One of the beautiful things, and I actually just wrote an article about this too. If you go to my blog, I'm going to send you off to my blog, mattlevenhagen.com. I talk about teams and processes there in that intersection. I have a a blog post, a recent one called Strategic Documentation Practices, Building and Upholding Comprehensive Team Resources. And within that, the reason I reference it, it kind of breaks down how we're using ClickUp. And the beautiful part about, one of the reasons that really sold ClickUp on me is the ability to also bake in documentation. Not just have a documentation, not just have a single wiki, like one central documentation, but having it in context. That was something like that was just a light bulb for me. And something you couldn't easily do, Trello. But not to get into like kind of breakdown of the whole interface, but basically on different levels. So I can have general documentation for dev teams, design teams, project management teams, whatever, marketing. Could have those, I have that kind of top level documentation. And in there, it's basically a space. So I have a space for web design. I have a space for project management. I have a space for marketing, for our internal marketing teams. So I can have documentation on that level. And then I can have it on a folder level, which a folder for us in our context, it's basically going to be a partner, a strategic partner. We have a number of those, or it's going to be a client. And a client could be multiple projects or multiple websites under that client. But we have a folder. We kind of group it that way. And then within that folder, there are boards, which might be specific to a larger project or a particular website, breaking it down. It's done different ways. All those levels, so the space, the folder, the board can all have their own documentation on that level. And then, of course, the task. And a task could be just a task, a little task, or it could be kind of a smaller project sometimes become tasks. So if we have, for example, a number of our partners, we might have larger projects within them. So we have separate boards because it keeps everything consolidated. But then we have these smaller projects. It might be a project, but then you can keep that within a task, which is like a card. If you think Kanban, a card, or I'm trying not to get too into the details and weeds there, but the task itself could be basically a project and then subtasks within that project. So, but that task can have documentation attached to it. Now they have a central board as well, central docs, where you can, basically search all that. Gets a little trickier because we have contractors that are guests in there, so they don't have same access to all the docs and stuff, but it's all there. And I, as an agency, we're innovating, we're growing, we're changing. And that's what really sparked today and me wanting to talk about this. How I went from Notion to Atlassian Confluence for documentation to ClickUp. I had to evolve some more because even though I have it kind of in those levels, it's still, to me, it was kind of janky in terms of how you find it and could do it. Like I actually created a dedicated folder for all our documentation within a space. There's different ways you can do that, but still it's like, I want it to be, for me, it's really important that documentation is visible. It's not buried, right? It's not something that I want it to actually be top of mind with my team. Don't forget about our documentation. But so I want to make sure it's visible. And one of the ways I did that, something I did this weekend, I'm actually recording this on a weekend, is that I have those still structured that way. Like I have a dedicated folder within a space for documentation. We still have our board documentation and stuff like that. But we also use Slack. So I've been kind of back and forth. Do I create a central document somewhere, even off ClickUp? Create a central document somewhere, and that document somehow links to our documentation, because we have documentation for developers, we have documentation for designers, but we can have a central doc where it drills into that and maybe highlights some important documents. But I didn't. But ClickUp doesn't actually make it very easy to do that. I would love to see someday as they evolve. They're doing a lot of improvements. They just released a whole new their interface, but I would love like a more of a wiki feel, like where it becomes more top level. I'm able to, as the owner of the spaces of the whole account, to be able to somehow make that documentation front and center, like control people's their experience, where I can just stick it in the corner or something. It's always there. Documentation, that's where you go. But I don't have that ability. And I'm like, well, how else can I make it visible? Well, we use Slack, and in Slack we have different channels. And in Slack, I have channels for each team, and we have multiple teams. We have teams within teams. But we have basically a development team, a design team, a marketing team, again, a project management team. We have, and then we have all teams. We have a board for all teams. And what I've done is actually Slack has this thing now where you can create favorites. And I'm hoping this translates to everybody that sees Slack. I got to actually check with my team. I'm hoping it does. And if not, I'm going to show them how to do it. But I think it does. And I think basically, so what I've done is I've basically put a bookmark, a drop down for documentation, and a bookmark to the top level documentation for that group, that team. So the development team has development docs. Now it's going to link directly to ClickUp to that top doc, and then they can see it all and access it all easily. And then I think underneath that, still working on this, I'm going to have like important docs, like standards docs and things that I want them to be able to easily access. But it's something that's kind of front and center that they can't avoid. It's there and it's easily accessible. So that's an area we're innovating. And again, I'm always trying to evolve. And a lot of this comes out of the struggle. Just like the reason we moved from Trello, we were struggling. And thank goodness, I can't even imagine, because we've expanded since the beginning of the year pretty dramatically. And so the team and everything, I would be a complete mess. I'd probably be just have cashed in by now. So I'm doing something else. I can't do this business on Trello. Anyway, now nothing against Trello. Trello's great, and it's probably great for a lot of people, but just wasn't working for me. So so we still have the board stuff. So one of the things that, and I'm always communicating this with my team as well, it's really important to capture things. And this whole conversation around how to capture things. Here we're talking about documentation, how to capture that documentation, but also not just capture it, but make it accessible, make it so people can actually find it in the context they're in. So the top level docs, definitely, they're going to be able to get to it through Slack now and through their channels, but to also be able to easily find it because it's got those dedicated folders and under spaces. It's always there. It's accessible. It's easy to find. The other thing, though, is like for the clients' boards or partner boards. So let's start with partners. So I have different partners that have different things we have to worry about. And they may have certain specific processes or ways we're doing things. For example, it's an agency we've done some work with. We actually have another project with them that it might become a bigger thing. So it's actually relatively a newer relationship this past year, but hopefully it'll become really, really big. That would be great. But in the meantime, we have a folder for this new agency that we partner with, and I'm going to have I just got documentation, right? They have a very specific process. They actually use Bitbucket, and they're using pipelines, which is a way to basically use Git and push code to Git and run it so it actually automatically updates the staging site. And then we can merge that. We can actually merge that into the production, and that pushes that code to the production. There's this process. And I actually, there's different ways you can do it, and you can be more sophisticated. You can go very far with that, or you can have just the simplest set up there. And I needed to get clarification, so I sent an email out this past day or two, and I just was like, can you break these things down? How are we dealing with the custom code? Well, I knew the custom code was using this process, but then I saw like these older files in there. I'm like, I don't think those are up. I don't think that, because they're like a couple of years old and they're plugins. It's a WordPress install. So, and I'm like, I don't think that's how they're doing it. I feel like I'm missing something here. Well, so it's a breakdown, like how are you actually updating? What's your process around core? What's your process around updating plugins, themes? Break it all down for me. And I got a really good reply. It answered all my questions. What do I do with that? So I just, okay, now I know. I'm just going to tell my team and hope for the best, that everyone will remember. Because we might do this project. We might not actually happen the first time. We might not do a project now for 6 months, and we do another project. Now we have to refresh our memories, capture it. So now I have their folder for that agency. I can create documents on that folder level, and one of those documents will be their Git flow, their process using pipelines. So awesome. That's really, really important. There was another example of that is we just did a redesign of a Shopify site, actually. And I have, I let my developers certain projects, like they just go do their thing, right? And I have complete trust in, I know I've been working with them for years. I know how they do things. I know they're going to do it right. I don't micromanage. I'm not a micromanager. And so they did they did this redesign and they developed this site. And then we actually, a week or two ago, we went live with it. It was a refresh of the design and new elements and whatever. So we went live with it, and they were going away for the weekend. And I'm like, I might have to actually go in there, because there's certain times of the week and weekends where I might just be mad around to do a fix or to edit some content needs content editing or whatever. And being Shopify too, I'm a WordPress guy. I know Shopify pretty well inside and out now too, but still, I'm like, is there anything, because we did a lot of custom work on this. I'm like, and so I asked my developer, what do I need to know? If I need to go in there today or tomorrow and edit something. And he came back with like 3 screenshots and just said, this is all you have to do. What did I do with that? Did I just leave it in Slack? Hopefully I can find it someday again. Because I may not need it today. I actually might need that 6 months from now, or a year from now, or 2 years from now. I grabbed it and I threw that into that particular client. This is actually a direct client, that board that deals with that website. So it's captured. And so all the things, so we're a custom shop. We do a lot of custom work. We do a lot of custom features. We do things in a custom way. So when we do that, it's really, really important for us to document those things. This is even when we're delivering a project. I'm actually reviewing a document now that my project manager put together, that we just built a custom full site editing block theme. And there's some custom ways we did things to help them manage things better. And that's all documented. We're going to give that to the client, but we're also going to keep that ourselves. So we have that as a reference. Super important. And this can apply to not just, development, design. I mean, it's for everything. Even for marketing, internal marketing, your efforts in that, or if you're doing marketing for others. Like, we have processes for this podcast. I have steps that we take and go through every time. We have a process to edit this and distribute it, how we interact with the guest, how we alert them that that they went live and what they can do, and asking them to. So we got emails we send out because we want them to repost the episode and all that. There's a process there. That's all captured. It's not something that's just in our head, right? I have that for a lot of little things. Even like I was doing Instagram stuff, and I'm trying to figure out a good cadence. Like I'm trying to mix it up there. I don't know. I'm terrible at Instagram, so I'll admit it. I'm not an Instagram guy, but I just tried it's a mixture of personal and then business stuff and whatever. And I kind of created this cadence, and I actually created a checklist in ClickUp and under my little marketing area and documentation. And I just check it off as I'm going, and then I uncheck it, and then I start over, and I refine it over time. That's all in ClickUp. I capture that. I'm not just randomly posting stuff. I know what the next thing is. So that's really, really important. So back to capturing. So another aspect of this is capturing everything that we get from clients. I've been talking to my project manager about this because when you're getting a lot of requests, and sometimes those requests are packaged within an email or we use Zendesk, a ticket. We have dedicated tickets for projects. And they might post something, and within that post, there's 3 or 4 things they mentioned that they need. Whether it's bullets or within a paragraph, it's there. So it's important to capture it. Even if you can't do it right now, don't think I'm going to go back to that. I'll remember to go back and capture those later. No. Not when you're doing a lot of stuff. And so this is a really important habit that I've learned, and I try to instill on my team. Like when you see that, you don't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be like even assigned today, but capture it in ClickUp, capture it in a board. And if there's any documentation, any references, if it referenced the doc, whatever it is, make sure that's documented. One of the things that I do too is sometimes, because we work with external systems. So I have partners that have Teamwork. I have partners that have Basecamp. I actually have one that their client uses Asana. I got, some just use email. It's all over the place. Email is actually a little trickier because email is harder to link to email for reasons, because sometimes the email is in a different account. And so when you link to it and you're logged into your account, that doesn't work. That's a thing. But Zendesk, that's a little easier. But also like Teamwork. So when I get a lot of stuff. That's one of our bigger partners. A lot of stuff through Teamwork. I mean, they're all the time, pretty much daily. When I get a task, they have the task in their system, but then I have to replicate that in our system to be able to assign it to my teams. Well, I actually created a custom field that's, what do I call it? I called it, I couldn't figure out what to call it for a while. I'm like, should it be just links? Should it be, what should it be? But I ended up, I think something creative. I'm looking now. I'm actually in my ClickUp. I'm going in because I won't remember for some reason off the top of my head. Custom field, handy references. I actually created as a URL field. Then I'm like, oh wait, it hyperlinks in text field. And anyway, but what I do is I link back to that external task. So we can work on it here. And then for my reference, I can find my way back because there's a ton going on over there. Find my way back. Teamwork is probably great for a lot of people. I think people like Teamwork. But if you're working with a larger agency that has, I don't even see everything. I probably only have a dozen clients in there that I work with on a regular basis, or boards, whatever. But even then, it's like, okay, there's things embedded in. It's just like anything. It's like ClickUp. It's like it's, I think what's worse is they have actually the clients also communicate in there. So they add clients in there. So you can make it team boards private internally only, or messages internally only, but a lot of stuff the clients also see. So there's messages from clients, there's messages from the team, there's also chat. There's like, to try to go back and like, if we get a task and then a week from now I have to go back and update that task with our hours or that it's done, complete it. Good luck trying to find that. Even if I try to name it, like using their search, it's like, so handy references. Anyway, so I digress a little there though, but it's important. All that stuff is captured, and that's what we, besides, the how-tos and what we're doing for clients within that board, within that website, we can, reference those things. Eventually you learn to, okay, maybe I've done that before. Maybe I should, do a search. Actually, ClickUp has a really powerful search, pretty advanced search. It's pretty nice. You can drill down into either your documents or just tasks or whatever. Anyway, so that is, that's one of the ways, that's kind of how we got set up now. And ClickUp's, it's just great. I'll just keep saying that. Okay. So, and with Slack, and so we use it alongside Slack. Basically 99% of my time is spent in Slack and ClickUp when in terms of managing things. So, and a lot of communication happens in Slack, a lot. So I would say most of our communication happens there. And then we have communication within context of tasks and stuff within ClickUp. So context is everything, if it's a broader discussion around a project, it is a project or about a website or about a client or something we're doing or something that's urgent or whatever, that's going to happen in Slack. But then specific things related to a task will be recorded within the task and the commenting system in there. All captured. What else needs to be captured? Time. There's a lot of people that don't like time. They don't like tracking time. They don't like to do things hourly. And I would prefer not to. But unfortunately, even that large agency I just said, they've been around for almost since the 90s. So like almost 30 years. I think 96 they went into business. And they do everything hourly. Everything's got that hourly, and hourly is great as long as you aren't like on a razor's edge, right? You make sure, even if you're doing hourly, you still can build in your cushions and you can still treat it like project based, but you communicate it hourly. It's well, you think about it project based and you communicate it hourly. There's an art form to this. Anyway, but so we have contracts. We do have monthly contracts. So there's certain things where it doesn't even matter how many hours you put into it. We have a cap, but it's not as critical to track those things, but there's other things that we do need to track. I need to track because I have to go back and invoice for those things. Most of my agencies, it's like a combination of things. It could be, there's projects we do like LARP, maybe full website builds or whatever that are project based. And there's other things that are hourly. And I'll have to be like, I think that's, we'll be like, that's going to be 5 hours. And then, we have to go back and build that. We have to track that and everything else. Well, from capturing time, up until now, we track that in a number of different ways. Sometimes we use Toggle, or I'll have my team members use Toggle if they don't have access to anything else. I've used Toggle since like forever. When I was a freelancer years ago, like we're talking like 10, 12 years ago, I was using Toggle then. But I use FreshBooks as well. That's my accounting system. That's where I do all my quotes, all my invoicing, all everything related to that, the financial side of stuff. And there's also tracking. So I have some of my employees in there. They track their time in there. And then I also have certain situations where things are tracked in a spreadsheet. And so it's kind of all over the place. And this is something I'm actually working on evolving right now and solving. I'm in talks with some of my team, and I'm looking at everything. And as you grow and you get a certain to a certain point as well, it becomes really important to be able to see everything. And just like in Trello, I couldn't see everything. That was a big problem of mine. I didn't have real insight. There wasn't good reporting across many boards, right? We had dozens of boards, which doesn't work. But so I can see everything. I can drill down. I can create dashboards. I can do all this stuff. Well, in ClickUp. So my thought process right now is I'm thinking about not forcing, asking nicely that everyone starts tracking all their hours in ClickUp. And ClickUp, I was actually going to create you can create boards and then you can create forms. ClickUp has a really cool form system where I could have them just submit a form with their hours every day. Or I could try to use the built-in time tracking, and I'm going to try to do that, I think. Maybe I'll report back and let you know how that goes. But basically, every task, every subtask, everything it has a little timer in it. And the time, there's actually timer built in. You can access it in different ways and track time in different ways and connect that to a project, to a board, to, and do it manually or just use the timer, like you'd use a timer. There's different ways to implement it, but then there's a dashboard I can create where I can see all the time. Dashboards are pretty cool in ClickUp because you can basically create different filters and look at very specific things. Like, for example, I have a dashboard for each one of my team members, and I look at a very specific thing for each team member. I can see in a pie chart what they have being reviewed, what's in progress, to-dos, and then I can drill into each one. So I can do that from a pie chart, literally click on the pie chart and then see what they're working on. It's beautiful for, stand-up meetings and just seeing, individually what they're all doing. Well, you can kind of do that with time tracking as well. I'm just trying this out, but it's another thing for us to capture with all of this stuff. Like one of the reasons I really like ClickUp is everything's becoming centralized. Having the ability to manage all our projects and having those insights and dashboards and be able to see everything and drill in and filter and then they have the amazing search. Search is really good. That is great, and the documentation baked into all that in context of what we need. And now if I can get time tracking built into this now, which maybe is a no-brainer once we do it, I don't know. I feel like, spreadsheets are really just straightforward, like spreadsheets, and FreshBooks kind of that way too. It's pretty simple because it's in its own context. If we talk about it that way, you go to a spreadsheet, that's all it is time tracking, right? You go to FreshBooks and you can see time on a project level, and then but you can pretty much drill down to that person and stuff. It's good, but you're in a time tracking area. Well, if I can get ClickUp now, and I'm fairly new to ClickUp, we've only been using it since like March or April of this year. But if I can figure that out and have that in this, and just have it all in these dashboards and have them just report there, that could be huge. Time tracking is, like I said, it's actually a little bit, it's a mixed bag for us because some things aren't billable. Like there's only certain projects that I need to see as billable, and go back to, create invoices for those and everything. But my goal here too with that is, so basically everything's tracked here. I will have to kind of double entry into FreshBooks to go invoice for those things, but that is what it is. I think it's fine. So if it's not, I'll hire somebody. Okay. We'll get somebody just to do that for me. So again, capturing everything, capturing documentation, capturing tasks, requests, capturing everything a client sends us, capturing everything that's going on with my team, seeing all the, between ClickUp and Slack, I see all the conversations. Unless they're private. Most of the conversations are public though, or internally public. And I can go back and I can see what's going on and what's happening, and I get notification. I can go through and see what all happened that day. The inbox. The inbox is actually the new 3.0 that came out with ClickUp. The inbox it was good before 3.0, but now this inbox is just amazing. I keep saying it's so amazing. I'm serious. I just have one place to go now, inbox, and I can go through all my team's work in one spot. Anyway, so what else? Capturing time. So that's something that's evolving. That's something like I said, I'll try to maybe do an update on that. And the other thing is capturing access. And this is kind of the last thing I want to talk about. In this, I would imagine a lot of different agencies and any businesses. I mean, you're going to have a lot of access. And access, I mean, like logins to websites, to systems, software. Really, delicate info that you get that you have to keep secure and private. And even the sharing of that is really, really important, that's done in a very secure way. For a long time, like I said, we actually used private docs and stuff and did a variety of different things in Confluence for a while. I was using that. It was one of those things that was like good, but not completely good. And it was still hard to like share it with other people, because working with, like, we have different partners and clients, direct clients. We share logins back and forth. When I get a login now, though, I can share it in a secure way because we use something called 1Password. Now, 1Password is a password manager. And one of the, it's more than a password manager. Protect yourself. Secret sharing, insights, does a lot of stuff. I'm just looking at their website while I'm talking. But simple, secure sharing. So that's a really big part of it, because not only do we need to capture that stuff, but we need to be able to share it in a way where it can't be stolen. Obviously, it can't be, it's just not out there. It's not in your inbox somewhere. And one of the things that's crazy is, like, how many logins are just shared in like Google Gmail? Here's a login, here, blah, 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 blah. It's just in there. If anybody's computer gets hacked or whatever, or somebody gets in there, somebody's walking past your computer and be like, oh, there's a login for me. If you use something like 1Password, nothing's perfect. Obviously, if somebody's walking past, you might still be able to see this. But 1Password allows, basically right now, we started, again, this is something that I adopted earlier this year because it was just getting out of hand. We have so many things that we track. We have to capture those things. So when we're working on projects, we're capturing all the logins. That might be server logins and maybe different tools and services they use within their website, and the website itself, WordPress admins or Shopify admins, and all, usually generally, if you look at a website, there's a cPanel, a control panel for the server, that access, FTP access, there's WordPress admin access. All that stuff has to be captured and organized. And now we use 1Password, and we have, basically, I can give access to members on our team. They have individual vaults, or teams have individual vaults. Vault is VAULT. I'm not even feeling like I'm pronouncing that well. A vault. Basically, it's a bucket where you can share logins or secure notes or anything. There's different ways. There's different things you can save in there and different kind of interfaces they have. Secure notes is where sometimes I get just whole bunch of login info. And if I don't have time at that moment, or it doesn't even make sense to try to break that apart, we'll put in a secure note. But all that now is just handled in there. And I think it's a huge service, I think, for our clients, because nothing against my clients or our partners, but I don't know that my experience is that not everybody is as organized as they could be or should be. I have scenarios where I will have a client come to me because they don't have access to something. It happens all the time. And I have that access because I've captured it and I have it secure. I have it secure in a little bucket, and I can go find that for them. I actually had a client, I've been working with through a partner, and they were so confused because they are on CloudFront, and they were on CloudFront. I was thinking Cloudways for some reason. I was just in Cloudways. That's a server. So CloudFront is, Cloudflare. That's why I was confused. That's why I was looking up. CloudFront, there's all these clouds. I got Cloudways now. Yeah, I got a couple clients in Cloudways. So CloudFront, Cloudflare is like a CDN situation. Anyway, they had Cloudflare, and they were managing their DNS in there. And then they have a registrar.com. I think they had register.com. Their registrar, I think, was register.com. And then they have their hosting. And for a long time, I've been working with this client actually for like 4 years. And a little over 4 years, I think we started working with them. And we didn't need all that access that whole time. We just needed to get into WordPress or whatever. We didn't need all that. And I remember for like 2 years ago talking to my partner, and I'm like, we didn't even know where their server exactly was or what that access was. So I was being proactive. I'm like, we're going to probably need this someday. We need to figure this out. And I was working with there's a larger company and some people in that company to try to track this stuff down. And we didn't know they even had Cloudflare at first. And, through some, sleuthing, we figured that stuff out, but still it was a mess. And I figured it out, right? That was probably a year and a half ago. I got the information. I got access to Cloudflare. Life is good. We didn't need it at that time, but we had it. Because when I'm working with a client, I want to know that they know where their tech stuff is, tech related stuff, their website stuff access. I want to know that they know. And if I have any signal that we don't have that information and no one at that company does, I'm going to probably bring that up. That I'm going to be proactive, because I want to make sure, in order for me to service and do the best job for a client or a partner, I need to have access, or need to know that they have access they can give me at some point. A lot of companies aren't that organized, and they're not going to, or they have somebody that was and they left the company. That's usually the problem. A lot of times the problem. This isn't the first one. This is just one story. Anyway, so that was a year and a half ago. And in recent months, we actually this was another redesign. And we redesigned their website and actually built it on a full site editing theme. And, but in that process, I was like, where are we going to host this? So that's part of the conversation. If we're going to rebuild your website, now we need access. And what's crazy is suddenly the client, the person, my contact there, was confused because they couldn't figure out where their access was. It was a combination of I'm not sure they knew they didn't have access to their registrar. They didn't have access. They didn't know about Cloudflare or how that worked. they're not technically savvy, so they don't know how that all works together. They didn't know much about their host. Long story short, I at the end of the day, we now have control of all that because I put them on one of my, the web hosts that I recommend. So they're actually off that old host. And so now we have that, but also because I did that work a year and a half ago, and I captured that information, I think I kind of shocked them a little bit when they're like freaking out because we don't know who, we don't have access to this. What are we going to do? I'm like, I have access. And then I added them as a user. I'm just the web developer. I'm just the agency out here helping them with their website, but I'm taking care of them, right? I was there for them. We stepped up and we were able to, I'm like, it's okay. We got you. And, but I think that's something, with access and stuff, somebody has to be the responsible person in the parties to be able to, help manage that. Now I'm perfectly happy with helping them manage that. But a lot of times if there's somebody not in the company that's like got that, that's not their thing, right? There's companies that who's in charge of that, again, and how is that documented? Do they have good documentation? Do they have like, somewhere a central place they put stuff? Maybe not. But I know what my responsibilities are and I need to take care of it. Even if we're not doing that work right now or don't need it right now, I want to make sure somebody else. And that could have been a whole episode by itself. So just to recap here. So what did we talk about today? And I think if we go back, we talked about documentation a lot, but really all of this is about being organized, finding a central way, a consistent way, a documented way to capture things. All the things that are coming at you, all the things that it's happening with your team, that's captured and searchable, and you can, you are able to operate because you have routes that you can take to find things. All of those things, the time, if this works and I have all our time in ClickUp, oh my gosh. Now I don't have to go to that spreadsheet. I don't have to go to FreshBooks for that. It's just all right there. They're connected to the actual tasks and everything right in there within context. Within context. That's like my favorite word, context. The passwords, all access, all of that stuff, capturing all that into a system is so critical and is such a game changer. And it has to scale. It has to scale. Like you have to evolve. And I think this is a continuous thing, even for us. Haven't arrived. And who knows? As we continue to grow more, we might decide we need something else here that I'm not seeing right now. But at this stage of the game, I'm able to sigh, a little bit of a sigh of relief, because I feel like we're in a place where we're able to manage things. It's still chaotic. It's still crazy. We're still, we're not perfect. We're things slip through the cracks here and there. But when that happens, though, it's like, well, is that an anomaly or is that something we need to field? Is that something we need to get better at? Always asking those questions. Things like if, again, it doesn't even matter what business you're in. Like if there's things you do, you might do it again. It's repetitive. Don't start from scratch next time. If you, now I have a pretty good memory. I'm good at what I do because I can remember things. I'm a very visual person. So if you show me a route, like if I go into a website and I have to figure out where something is in a website, and maybe it's like 5 or 6 or 10 clicks in, and then a little this and a drop down there. A lot of times I remember that. It's weird. Like I don't have a great memory otherwise. Like, don't ask me facts. But when it's something like that, I got it. I can map, I see it all. But I don't rely on that. And I'm getting older. So I want to capture that. I want to assume that, you know what? A year from now, Matt is going to need to go back into that system or find that login, or, like when I help a client with access to a service, right? A plugin or whatever. Some plugins have their own, they're connected to a service or whatever. I capture that and I organize it, and I know where to find it. So a year from now, when they need help, I'm there. I just helped somebody get one of their accountant didn't have access to, what system was it? It was a Spotify, but it was an add-on that went connected to an outside system where they track all this stuff. Anyway, they reached out to me. Matt, our accountant lost access. Okay. I knew where that was. Actually, it was weird because you can't access it directly. I had to go through Shopify. Anyway, I fixed the access for him. Now, if I wouldn't have captured that, or if I didn't know that, I would have been in trouble. But same with everything in your business. You want to make sure that, what you're doing today doesn't get lost, and you're not going back to from scratch later. Somebody has to be responsible. Be the responsible one. Make sure you capture things and you organize them well. Even if, like in the beginning, like I said, I just used Notion. But the thing about Notion was I was still organized in there. Like I could still find everything that I was getting. I was still capturing things. I've always captured things. I always feel like that's really, really important. Because, it's your clients rely on you, your partners rely on you to be, the responsible one when in all the things that you are particularly in charge of. So I don't know if I have much more to say about that, but I thought I'd share you kind of where I am too with all that stuff and how I've evolved from the trenches, as we talk about here. It's something that, ClickUp. Should I even say anything more about ClickUp? You definitely check it out if you're kind of on the fence or you're looking for a good project management system. No tool is perfect. There's things like I think I mentioned earlier. I wish I had more control where I could put that documentation button like up in the red and just force everybody to see it like in red in the corner. Or have like a central wiki or page that's just there. Like it's easy to access. But then if you don't have that, you got to innovate. You got to, figure it out. One of the things too here, and I'll leave it at this. The other thing here too is it's very easy, like with services, to use 90 different services, right? I pay for a lot I spend thousands of dollars every month on services alone. My budget right now, I believe it's around $3,000 a month just for software and services. That's it. That's my expenses. Most of my expenses is that, right? You throw in there, like I pay for hosting and all that, internal stuff as well. But to make my business operate, it's thousands of dollars a month. So what does that work out to? Do some math, 36,000, 40,000 a year, just in that. And so it's easy to have a lot of different things. But the other aspect of this though, is to make sure that, to find solutions where you can kind of centralize things. And in this case, like with a time track, if I can get that in there and have my documentation in there, have all our projects in there and all our communications in there, plus Slack, holy cow, it's a beautiful thing. I'm going to leave it at that. Hope you found this useful and interesting and inspiring, and get out there and get organized. All right, till next time. That's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe if you haven't already and give us a thumbs up if we deserve it.
If you want to comment on this episode's page, provide me with requests on topics for future episodes, or inquire about being a guest, please find your way to thebuilders.fm. You can contact me there or add a comment under these show notes. Now a word from our sponsor, my agency, Unified Web Design. We build custom websites, features, we maintain websites, we work with agencies to fulfill their web design and development needs, and more. If you are interested in our services or are looking for an agency to work with as a partner to build awesome sites for your clients, feel free to reach out to me at unifiedwebdesign.com. There's a handy contact me link at the top. Fill out that form and it will open a ticket, and that ticket will find its way to me. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.